no injury. There are kids present here tonight, so I would ask that when you speak that you, yes, hi, that you keep that in mind. Let's keep the conversation G-rated, if you don't mind. So that's it. Come on up to the microphone if you have a question. Get up here and ask. I'm not going to call on you. We'll start taking questions now. Come on over to the microphone. And y'all don't, you don't have to wait. If there's somebody up here speaking, you can come on up and form a line behind them. So you can pull that mic. Yeah. Podiums aren't here, folks. There you go.
I don't think it's fair because if your friend breaks up with you and you're moving to different schools, it's not fair for them because if we move to different schools, we can't be together. And it's kind of hard and heartbreaking. And with those hot masks, it's hard to breathe and you don't want to go every day with those. It's really attempting to not do that. And I just want to be in Hill Country. It's a good place. I don't want to move to Currington, a public school. There's hallway monitors, and I don't want that. They just let us be free. And moving to a different school is hard.
All right. Well said. Great job. I want to reiterate that at this point we're taking questions on the application. That was really more of a comment that you would want to make during the comment period that we'll get to here in just a little bit. So hold those comments. At this point, we're just taking questions on the application. If you don't mind, do you have a question related to the application?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Y'all had said that you were planning on using 80% rainwater harvesting in order to make your mixtures. Is that correct?
So, again, this application is for an air quality permit. They're required to use water to suppress dust, but the TCEQ doesn't dictate where they get that water from.
Okay.
So, again.
Right. But, so assuming that they're using the water to keep down the dust and all that kind of stuff, if they're using rainwater, this is Texas. And so I'm just concerned if they're using rainwater to do things like keep down dust or mix or whatever, it is Texas and it doesn't rain that often. So I'm just sort of curious, if it's a really dry season and they have to put water on the piles of aggregate or whatever it's called, and they've run out of rainwater, are they gonna cut back on the wetting and allow the particulate to, get blown around? Or are there contingencies for keeping that down given that they're planning on using rainwater and it's Texas?
Okay. So Don, what does the standard permit require with respect to watering and what are their responsibilities?
Well, this is actually pretty simple. If they have no water, if they're using only rainwater to suppress their dust and there's no rain, they can't operate. They have to meet all of the requirements of the standard permit all the times. If they can't operate.
So under the standard permit, they're required to use water or dust suppressant chemical in order to suppress dust. If they don't have that available to them, then they should be operating. Don, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. What is a dust suppressing chemical?
It's typically saline water, salt water.
Salt water. Okay. Okay.
That's just the requirement of the statute is to use water or a dust suppressant chemical. I presume that most of these operations use water.
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Hi, thanks for being here today. Got 3 questions, if that's okay. And
If you don't mind, just go one at a time.
One at a time? Okay. All right. Line short. I'd like to know about admixtures, if you will have any admixtures besides the basic, river rock, the sand, the simple stuff. What are you going to do to enhance the concrete beyond that, and how is that going to be contained at the facility?
Yeah, so we will be using admixtures on the site. These admixtures are used in concrete. In all concrete, admixtures are being used. Our practice is that we have, they're in tanks and they're also inside a concrete container.
What specific ones will you be using?
just for information for the group, admixtures, we use them, well, they're used throughout the country, and we use them down in San Antonio, and we've partnered up with the Edwards Aquifer Authority. They've reviewed our admixtures, and they reviewed them, and they have no issues with them, and they've determined that they are not regulated as any type of chemical to be of concern.
Did you have one more question? All right, so the question is the admixtures themselves, what specifically?
I could also direct this a little bit to TCEQ,
Okay.
just in terms of what this permit allows as far as emissions as it relates to what's in the stockpiles, what's in the silos, in the delivery trucks. What additional ingredients to this recipe are there? That's a lot of times I think concrete batch plants are minimized as very simple operations with the river rock, the sand, the cement, and there's more to it. And I think it's easy to minimize this, make it seem real safe, but I'd like to know a little bit more about that. Also, I read some about VOCs, I guess that's volatile organic chemicals and their emissions. Is it correct that within this permit there is zero allowance for the release of VOCs? Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Correct, okay. And do any of the admixtures that are available to concrete companies include VOCs, and they have to kind of stay away from that, not use that, never let it into their facility, or are there some that are banned that are not allowed to enter into this facility?
Any admixture that uses VOCs is not allowed to use in this concrete batch plant.
Okay. Good. And did you have any more specific products that you can bring up? I heard one, you said it kind of fast, it started with an A, I believe.
Yeah, they're called air entrainers. There's some that add essentially bubbles to the concrete mix, and that helps with chemical properties to make sure the concrete doesn't crack during freeze events, that type of stuff. So it's needed. It's an engineering requirement of concrete. The other ones are engineering requirements to make sure that the concrete, for example, is laid down correctly, to make sure that it is usable and it has a longer life. Like I said, the admixtures we use, none of them have VOCs, and every one of our admixtures has been reviewed by the Edwards Aquifer Authority because, again, they had the same question, and they're aware of these admixtures, and again, they reviewed everything. They took the MSDS, they talked to the manufacturers themselves, had no issues with the admixtures.
Thanks, I'll be back.
Thank you. Next.
Question for TCEQ. And this is for people who are here this evening that may not be aware of the standard permitting process for a concrete batch plant, so they can at least know what that is. Is my understanding correct, is that the standard permitting process is once the application is filed, that if all the blanks are filled in correctly and they say they're going to comply with the standards that your agency says have to be complied with, and they cross the T's and dot the I's, that regardless of tonight's comments, that permit will be approved? Non-contested?
Based on the Texas Clean Air Act, and this standard permit is written in the Texas Clean Air Act, it states that if they meet the requirements in the application, we must issue the permit.
So the technical requirements are spelled out in the Texas Clean Air Act, and if they demonstrate that they meet the technical requirements that are in the Clean Air Act, TCEQ is required to issue the registration.
That's correct, required by law to issue the registration.
And so I think the reason why we're here, that's going to be the next question, is why are we here? Even though Don mentioned earlier in his presentation, the application is technically complete, no final decisions been made on the application, so the review process is ongoing. If we receive comments tonight that give Don or Sierra reason to believe that they don't meet those requirements that are in the Clean Air Act, then that would affect the final decision that they make on the application. So we're here tonight to provide input from the public. If you have any information that you want to provide, that, well, again, it's spelled out in the Texas Clean Air Act, and that's why we're here tonight, is to provide the public an opportunity to comment on the application. And again, if there's something that you guys provide us tonight that causes Don or Sierra to believe they don't meet the requirements, then that's going to affect the decision they make on the application.
That's very important to clarify for these people here this evening.
I would like to add one thing. We had an application in Houston here recently where we had a public meeting. Information came out of that public meeting, asked us to go back and look at different information in the application, like the property lines. Turned out the applicant did not own the entire property line. We voided the application. So, I mean, this does work. If you find stuff that's not correct, we look at it and we verify it, and if it's not right, we'll void the application.
Well, clean air is what we're supposed to be talking about tonight, not property lines, right?
Well, but the property line
Was
is
part of
one
the application
Right.
for the distance requirements.
And if they say they're gonna do it, then it's easy.
Well, what I'm trying to say, the last applicant said they were going to do it also, and it was proved they weren't. They couldn't. So we voided the application.
Thank you for clarifying.
All right, thank you. Next. There you go.
In your presentation, you gave a 5-year plan, and I was wondering if this permit is only for 5 years. And if not, what are the plans after 5 years?
How long is the registration good for, Don?
This standard permit is good for 10 years.
And so the presentation focused on what would happen during the first 5 years, with nothing said about the second 5 years.
I think you were making reference to the number of jobs, or so it wasn't operational, like what's going to happen operationally in the next 5 years. Go ahead and elaborate on what you meant by the first 5 years, I guess.
Yeah, I'll answer that quickly. Beyond 5 years, it's really too difficult for us to speculate what may happen in the future. So our focus now is on what we anticipate happening in the first 5 years and that plan.
And who is going to ensure that whatever you propose in the plan is accurately monitored?
Joel Anderson's from our regional office in San Antonio. He can talk about the investigation process.
So what we'll do is we'll go out and we'll ensure that the facility is operating in compliance with the permit, meeting technical requirements that they're required to do, the application of water or dust suppressants, that their emission control equipment is operating as represented in the permit and per manufacturer specifications, and checking, depending upon what kind of stormwater permit they get, that their best management practices are in place.
Okay, does the permit specify how many trucks are allowed?
No, ma'am, it does not. Trucks are not governed or permitted by the TCEQ.
So after 5 years, you could do 30 or 40 trucks a day, or 50 or 60 trucks a day, and there would be no recourse?
Well, Don, are there any limitations in the standard permit?
Well, the only limitations are the production hours and production in cubic yards per day. How many trucks that takes to meet those requirements, they'll be allowed to run.
And do you know how many cubic yards per day the permit is for, and how many trucks that equals?
Well, it can produce up to 300 cubic yards an hour, 24 hours a day.
And how
So
many
it's
trucks is that?
7,200, I think it is. And a truck holds around 9 to 10 cubic yards.
And so, can you do the math for me and tell me how many trucks that could be?
Well, theoretically, if they're running full force, it'd be about 30 trucks an hour.
An hour? Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Sorry.
We're moving on. Yes, ma'am. All right, order, please. Order. I'm sorry.
How many applications has your agency received from Vulcan in the last year or two?
You have that information, Don?
Permit applications.
I do not have that information. I don't know how many they submitted.
I was also wondering if you had that information, if you've seen an increase in the last 3 or 4 years in applications, permit applications.
I've been doing this job about 8 or 9 years, and we average around 120 applications a year for concrete batch plants.
So
So
you
there's
haven't
no
seen
big
any-
increase.
any
It's just the
increase?
location.
Oh, okay, the locations that shifted. Well, what is the current shift on those locations?
North of Austin and out to the hill country, and in Houston always.
In Houston, always, okay. I was wondering, has your agency ever denied a permit for Vulcan?
For Vulcan, I'm not sure. We have denied permits. I just don't know if they're one of us from Vulcan or not.
Okay, that pretty much answers my question. Evidently, from previous comments, so it appears that your agency is fairly limited in what you can do. So if this company meets your whatever the little criteria is, and I'm not sure what that is, but y'all just have to rubber stamp it, right?
Well, we don't rubber stamp it. I mean, I have done technical review, I have recommended issuance. We will look at all the comments we receive, and if there's nothing in those comments, my recommendation to the executive director would be to approve the permit.
And I guess I'll just piggyback. There were a couple of questions there that we didn't have the answer to. If you wanted to come back during the comment period and ask those questions again, and then they'll respond to them in writing along with all the other comments that we received on the application. Yes, ma'am.
Why would you put a concrete plant next to a school when they don't want a concrete plant next to there?
So, from the TCEQ's perspective, we can address that with respect to location.
That's correct. The Texas Clean Air
Hold
Act.
on. Okay. I'll let Don address it. Go ahead, Don.
As far as location choices made by an applicant, we do not have the jurisdiction to consider that when reviewing an application.
What is TCEQ's role with respect to reviewing an application?
It's to review the requirements of the permit and make sure the application meets those requirements.
So, order. Folks, hold on. I will. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. To the extent that you guys want to address that, I'll give you the opportunity.
I'll try and answer that for you. Concrete batch plants exist in communities around the country. We operate some concrete batch plants down in San Antonio that back up to high schools. They back up to subdivisions and apartment complexes. We operate in communities. Concrete batch plants exist in every large major metropolitan area and in small little towns. If you ever driven through the hill country or driven up any one of these highways, as you come into the town, name a town of, any one of them, you see a concrete batch plant, that's usually the first business you see is right next to McDonald's, next to any other shopping center. So concrete batch plants exist in all our communities because they're needed in the community. So for us, this permit is protected. It's protected at 100 feet from our equipment. So, and we are 7.5 football fields from the school. We have plenty of buffers on this large piece of property. We have done our best to situate this plant in an area that is, it's protected with the community and it's considerate of the community.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Why? I don't understand. Why would you put it next to the school? Because it may actually produce bad air and can cause the store to go down.
Thank you. I want to make sure I understood the question. I didn't quite hear all of that. What was the question? Okay. Okay, so then the question. Okay. So I guess it gets to an issue of an impact to surrounding receptors, property value, aesthetics. Again, what is the TCEQ's role in taking that into account with respect to air quality?
That's the same as the location choices. We have no jurisdiction to consider those.
So, well, and again, I heard Eddie sort of address that with respect to choice of location. I understand that you will not agree with or like every answer that you hear, and again, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. That's what the comment period is really for, is for you to come up and use that time to say, earlier this question was asked, this was the response, I disagree with that, and here's why. That's an excellent use of your time when providing comments. Did you have another question?
Yes. Why did you choose to this
Good job, thank you. Do you mind if we have some other folks, you've already had a chance to ask a question, we'll get back to you.
How about the signs, can we agree or disagree with that?
Well, you got people behind you in line that haven't had a chance to ask a question yet, so I just, out of deference to those folks.
I'm gonna go ahead, because I was in
All
line,
right.
I didn't cut.
All right.
I can't believe talking about cutting. I'll keep this one simple, the guy behind me's got better questions. I wanna know the specific emissions that we're worried about at that 99, 100 foot mark. What are we talking about that's bad for our bodies? I don't like to just speak in generalities of emissions. I'd like to know exactly what it is that, at that 50 foot mark, what is it that people are breathing that the 100 foot mark, they're not breathing, or they're just breathing a little and maybe it's not bad for them? I'd like more detail about emissions. Thanks.
Most of the emissions from the concrete batch plant will be from the truck traffic on the site, where they'll be required to maintain the roads, water, and keep the dust down, but that would be the most that's traveling away from the site to the fence line. The ingredients such as cement, fly ash, those are required to be contained the entire process. They come in tanker trucks, they're pneumatically filled into the silos. All conveyance systems have to be totally enclosed. This is a wet ready mix plant, so when it comes out of the chute, ready to go into ready mix, it's already wet, it's a slurry. So really the only possible option for the materials that dust from the roads and the trucks may get to the property line, but it's still at the property line, it's still meeting all federal requirements, all the national ambient air quality standards.
Or particulate matter.
For particulate matter.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Charles Irvin. I'm an environmental lawyer. I represent the Boerne to Bergheim Coalition for a Clean Environment. A lot of people here are members or supporters of that coalition. I've got a couple of questions. First question to Mr. Nealon. Hello, how are you doing? The permit application contains a representation that they are not going to produce more than 100,000 cubic yards per year. Is that a binding limitation, or is that fair game and they can go up to 24/7, 365 at their full production rate?
All representations in their application are binding. However, applicants are allowed to make changes to those representations later on down the line if they want to, through an alteration process through their registration. And as long as those changes continue to meet the full requirements of the standard permit, they'll be approved.
So I've been to a lot of these kind of hearings, and when I see an applicant present and tell the public that there's only going to be 4 to 5 trucks per day, that's not a binding representation in the permit, is it?
Anything said here is not binding. It's what was written in the application, what was submitted for our review.
Well, and the permit doesn't cover trucks coming in and out anyway.
That's correct.
Right, but the permit does have 100,000 cubic yards per year, but they can change that. They can change that the day after they get the permit issued, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So,
All right, thank you.
So this is a
Go
question
ahead.
to Vulcan. Do you have any intent to go above 100,000 cubic yards per year at any time in the future? I guess this is where you don't answer.
Currently, we're restricted to what we can produce with our permit. That's our intent, that's what we're committed to doing. We have no intention of going beyond that at the current moment.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
This is the question.
Go ahead.
This is the question to TCEQ. Can you explain why the applicant missed the mandatory statutory deadline for issuing the public notice? It was supposed to, under, let's see, 382-05199, it was supposed to be issued by March 4th. This notice didn't get issued, didn't get approved until the 12th. It wasn't published in paper until the 28th. By my reckoning, and we submitted comments and detailed all the dates, the applicant simply missed the statutory mandatory deadline for issuing public notice.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. We did cover that during the review process. I had several emails with Westward Environmental. The exact dates, I don't remember what they were, but we did get the notice to them before the deadline, and they did publish within the requirements of the standard permit, 30 to 45
All right.
days.
So this is TCEQ's response to that question. Again, you're free to disagree with it, but as Mr. Irwin indicated, you're going to submit comments to that effect. So again, the TCEQ will have to go back, review those comments, review his comment to that effect, and make that determination again. And then they'll respond to it in written response to comments. I'm telling you something that you, anyway, but for the benefit of the crowd, it is something that TCEQ will have to look at.
And just so everyone knows, we did submit detailed comments today with all this information in. Question for TCEQ. Did you review the applicant's compliance history as part of your technical review?
I did.
And what was the applicant's compliance history?
The applicant's compliance history is 0.0, rated as high.
And so, also in our comments, we have conducted our own review going through TCEQ's public records and discovered that there are many, many, many more violations than reflected in the permit history, in the compliance history, because Vulcan is very adept at using, or rather I would say misusing, the Audit Privilege Act. Have you reviewed that aspect of their compliance history, whether violations were disclosed under the Audit Privilege Act? Is that part of your review?
No, sir, it's not. The compliance history report is part of my review, and that shows up as 0.0 high.
What, Joel, or can you help out? What sort of things go into compliance history? What's part of that formula for an applicant?
It is a fairly complex formula that's listed in 30 Texas Administrative Code 60. But I don't believe that the violations that are disclosed under the Audit Privilege Act figure into that. The ones that figure into Don's that are discovered by the regional office, I believe, fall off after 1 year?
I think it's
5 years. And so, based upon the equation that we use to determine compliance history, it was rated as high.
And are you aware that Vulcan had a 5-year-long audit that they claimed to be continuously doing and continuously disclosing 30 violations during that 5-year period? And none of those are in your compliance history.
I am aware that they did undergo the Audit Privilege Act and that they did disclose violations.
And is it your position that a 5-year audit is allowed under TCEQ's rules?
I know that they're required to submit a notice of audit, and then they're required to give us those the notice of disclosure of violations. I'm not familiar enough with the program to know what the span of that is.
I've never seen a 5-year-long audit.
Okay.
I've never seen an applicant be able to continuously audit themselves, all the while disclosing violations after violations after violations, not even fixing the violations. And to me, I think TCEQ has a real problem with this applicant, this very applicant sitting here. So I would urge you to look at our comments, go back, and seriously look at this applicant's compliance history. That consultant, they use the same consultant down at their 1604 plan. That's where all these violations are. We didn't even look at their other plans. We just looked at one on the 1604 loop. So we're very concerned about that, and I think this applicant is very adept at misusing and doing sham audits, hide all problems.
So you said that you're going to include that in the comments as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't need to remind you about that. Okay.
2 more questions, and I'll be quite quick. I
All right,
know there are
thank
other
you.
people. Sierra, you said that you were going to incorporate the previous comments from the previous permit application. Are you going to substantively respond to all those previous comments as well as part of this review?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay. And then question for the applicant. You made a statement that you were 99% violation free. Does that count in all those self-reported violations that you disclose under your audit privilege, or does that exclude all of those?
That's,
Hold on, let him respond. Go ahead.
so that's our national number of inspections versus violations issued to all of our operations that we have from coast to coast.
And you used the term violations issued. I'm asking about violations that you discovered yourself and disclosed under some sort of privilege. Do you know what the percentage would be? Would it go down from 99%?
Yeah, I don't have that answer for you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. I would like to know why
Vulcan has more complaints filed against them than any other concrete or aggregate company in their county.
Okay. Hold on, I can't hear her. Go ahead.
I'd like to know why there's so many more for your company than any other concrete or aggregate company. You guys are the greatest thing going. I want to know. How's that possible?
So I think I understand the question. Is there something that you want to say with respect to your compliance record compared to other
Not compliance. I
applicants?
want to know why so many people are complaining about your company versus all the others.
So you're talking complaints only?
Complaints right now, yeah.
And my question is, we operate 65 facilities in the state of Texas.
I'm talking about Bear County right here, is what I looked at.
So do you know with respect to Bear
Yeah, so
County?
I don't even know the number of complaints in Bear County. I know every complaint that we receive either through the agency or from our neighbors, we address it directly. We sit down with our neighbors, we understand their concerns, we listen to them, and we try and correct if there is an issue.
Hold on.
So that is the way that
Hold on.
that is the
Go
way
ahead.
we address every complaint. So I know there's a lot of different industry, a lot of different businesses, from Burger Kings to material construction companies. I know that every complaint that we have, and most of them, there are concerns, there are questions about our operations. We'll sit down, always do it. This is the way we operate in all our communities. We have an open door policy, and we'll sit down and listen to our neighbors.
So Joel, the San Antonio Regional Office covers Bear County. What is the regional office's obligation with respect to any complaint that's received?
So we investigate 100% of the complaints that we receive, or we ensure that they're investigated.
Yeah. My question is though, it seems like you're investigating them more than anybody else. Why is that?
I would
Marietta,
say,
by the way, had 12.
Hold on.
They had 12. They're your biggest competitor. They also have 3 quarries and a lot of concrete plants. 12. Allen Cement next door had 2.
Okay.
There's
So,
a definite problem here.
so again, I'll let Joel go ahead and finish with respect to complaints and investigations.
we do receive complaints on cement plants, concrete plants, quarries, restaurants, paint body shops.
Right. I see them, there's a lot.
We do receive a lot of different
I keep
complaints.
up with it, frankly.
Just based on my perception of it, I would say that they don't seem to be, doesn't seem to be a significant source of complaints that we receive. I would say that
That's his perception. Again, if you
I'm
want to
just
provide us with
comparing-
information
I'm just
that
trying
you,
to compare
hold
to
on,
light
hold on,
companies,
hold on. If you have information to provide us, I would encourage you to get that in during the comment period, submit it in writing, and that's something that the TCEQ again would be forced to look at and consider.
All right. So, what is it that you spend as far as an industry in like Region 13? What's the number one thing that you deal with as far as complaints? What industry?
It's.
I already know the answer, so I'm hoping you're going to be honest with me.
Thank you. Let's give him a chance to respond.
It changes. You ask me that question, I'm gonna tell you it's chicken. It's barbecuing chicken. But yes, I will tell you that aggregate, sand mines, quarries, we do receive those complaints. I think, I've got a number, so 23 out of 138 air complaints that we've received this year have been associated to the aggregate industry. There may be a few more with respect to stormwater. So again, we do receive complaints on them. Are they our biggest source of complaints? I don't necessarily know that I would say that.
Made at some point when they enacted the legislation that created the standard permit.
So the Senate, you're saying the commissioners have no power over this. Is that what you're telling me? Nor the governor?
Correct. Under the statute, they do not have a decision over this permit application.
First thing is, we're listening to the community. We're open to hearing their comments and their suggestions. Secondly, We are on 34 acres, so there's more buffer on this property. This plant can be built on a smaller piece, but we have buffer areas that help keep our operation, and then we have buffer area that keeps us from the adjoining properties. So that buffer area, which we feel and we're committed to enhancing by having some of these things that we talked about, whether it be wildlife habitat or outdoor recreation area, those types of things. So by having those buffer areas.
Hold on, let him finish, please.
And then in addition to that, we talked about stormwater capture. That's something that's not required, but we see as beneficial. So that's an additional enhancement. And finally, I would say the equipment itself. The permit requires a capture system that has 99.5% capture. The plant that we're installing has 99.9% capture capacity, or it's rated at. So we're taking the permit and we're going above that. And so those are some of the things that we have in place.
Would you be willing to come back and show more detail in a site plan that actually shows exactly some of these sort of sketch idea, conceptual plans, but in a more concrete effort to tell us, are you really doing vegetation along this edge? What are the plant species that you're putting there? Is there a notion of what this wildlife is and what the vegetation is? Are you willing to come back and show that to this community in more detail?
I will tell you, we're absolutely committed to doing that. I would love to sit down with the community and talk about how shall we best design this location to benefit the community. If you have information and feedback on how you would like those trees to be laid out, we are open to listening. You know, anything that would help you understand our operation.
But you're not required to do any of this in the process?
Not in the standard permit, no, sir.
Yeah, I will finish with Vulcan Materials operates in communities across the country. We have 44 wildlife habitat, certified wildlife habitat locations throughout our country. There is no reason that this cannot be the 45th location to be certified wildlife habitat. So that is our commitment. We've committed to do it for the past couple of decades with the Wildlife Habitat Council. We're one of the founding members of the Wildlife Habitat Council. So if nothing new for
issues
us.
around water and dust, not wildlife habitat. You know, I mean, we all love our wildlife here, but at the same time, what we're interested in is how are you controlling the things that we're in question of. And I think you're not providing enough data. I'll just offer that. You're not providing clear data on water and on controlling the dust. And I think you need to do a better job of that.
Thank you. All right, so we've been taking.
If Vulcan Materials is allowed to build a proposed concrete plant on State Highway 46, it will be in very close proximity to HCMS and will negatively impact us in terms of health and finances. HCMS has provided an excellent education to children in Boerne and the surrounding hill country area for the last 36 years. Our campus consists of children 18 months through 8th grade. We are one of only 3 American Montessori Society accredited schools serving this range of students in the entire state of Texas. My foremost concern is the health impact that this plant will have on my students. They are an age group that is particularly sensitive and vulnerable to airborne pollutants. As a Montessori school, one of the key tenets of our curriculum is the outdoor classroom. Our students spend time outdoors every day to enrich their learning through careful observation of the sights and sounds of the natural Texas hill country. As enrichment tools, we have vegetable gardens, farm animals, a nature preserve, and a monarch butterfly way station. The students spend time outside every day during lunch, recess, and PE. Our cross-country and track teams practice in a field that will be adjacent to the plant. We carefully chose this site because of the use of the surrounding land was compatible with our core values. Vulcan is pursuing a shortened permitting process, which gives no consideration to the unique set of facts presented here. That is, Vulcan is proposing a concrete batch plant very close to a school that caters to children from toddlers through middle school who spend a substantial portion of their time learning in an outdoor classroom. Yet there is nothing in Vulcan's application or TCEQ's review that considers the potential adverse short-term and long-term side effects of air contaminants or nuisance odors from this facility on the school and its young students. Vulcan has hired a PR firm to tout their good neighbor policies, including walking trails and butterfly gardens. Having looked at Vulcan's compliance history at other similar sites in the area, I have serious reservations about Vulcan's ability to be such a neighbor. None of these promises can change the fact that they plan to locate a plant that will emit pollutants next to a school. Vulcan has shown that they have the resources and knowledge to eliminate opposition and fast-track the permitting process. Does this speak of being a good neighbor? I think not. In the event that a permit is issued, remember our given elevation will give us a bird's eye view into their proposed operations. And while it should not be up to us to make sure the permit is enforced, we will be vigorously monitoring the site for signs of non-compliance. At the very least, TCEQ should not allow a permit to be issued for a concrete batch plant in a green field if the company has failed to demonstrate its ability to comply at other existing sites.
Thank you.
If Vulcan is allowed to move forward with this plant, I fully expect to hear my students begin to ask why our gardens and butterflies are covered in concrete dust, as this is exactly the type of inquisitiveness and sensitivity we aim to instill in our children. Please help me maintain a school environment that supports safe air to breathe and the curious sounds of nature, not of pollutants and man-made noise nuisances. We cannot allow the interests of this multinational company to override the interests of our Hill Country community, especially at the cost of our children.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Nearly 80% of the water used to make concrete will come from the rainwater capture system. Conservation is important to us. In addition, recycled water systems will reduce overall water consumption. Finally, paved areas will capture and manage stormwater and prevent uncontrolled runoff. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate you listening. We have lots of information on our website and in your handout. We look forward to working with you in this community.
All right, thank you. So this time I'm going to introduce the folks that are here from TCEQ. Again, my name is Brad Patterson. Working at TCEQ in the Office of the Chief Clerk. Once again, I'm the moderator for tonight's public hearing. Out at the registration tables, Irma Salazar and Deanna Avalos were helping you get registered for tonight's public hearing. Once again, if you didn't speak with Deanna or Irma to get registered for the hearing, please go ahead and do so. They're also from the Office of the Chief Clerk. Jim Fernandez is hiding, but he's over operating our recording equipment. We are making a recording of the entire hearing. So in order for you to be picked up on the recording, we'll need you to speak into a microphone. I have one. There's microphones up here for TCEQ staff and for the Vulcan representatives. And there's a microphone over here to my left for the public to use. From the Environmental Law Division, Sierra Redding is here. Sierra is here tonight representing the Executive Director. Don Nealon is from the Office of Air. Don's the permit reviewer for this particular application. Joel Anderson and Lynn Baumgardner are from the San Antonio Regional Office. Joel's sitting up here to my left, Lynn's in the audience. Our regional offices are where our environmental investigators work out of. If you ever had any concerns about any facility that TCEQ regulates, they would be the ones that you would be contacting. They would send out the investigator, conduct the investigation, and follow up with you as appropriate. Also from the Environmental Law Division, Booker Harrison is here. And I think that is it for TCEQ staff. So at this time, I'm going to ask Don Nealon to grab the microphone and talk about his role in the technical review process at TCEQ.
Hi, my name is Don Nealon. I am the permit reviewer for this application. This was an application for a concrete batch plant standard permit with enhanced controls. Thank you. And my responsibility is to compare the representations in the application submitted by the applicant against the requirements of the standard permit. And in this case, the representations meet all of the requirements of the standard permit, and I have recommended issuance of permit.
All right, thank you. And then if Sierra, if you'll talk about the administrative process for this type of application.
Good evening, my name is Sierra Redding, and I am a staff attorney at the TCEQ. I represent the Environmental Law Division for the Executive Director. Oh, that's better. So tonight we're here to listen to your concerns and gather your comments, and we are going to take those comments back and review them before we issue or make a decision. Before we make a decision about the permit application.
All right.
Yeah.
Hold on. Folks, let's let her finish. Go ahead, Sierra.
We realize that, they have previously applied for a permit, a standard permit, and then that was withdrawn and they came back and applied for the standard permit. Those comments that we received from the previous application will also be included for this one and reviewed as well.
Thank you, and then that's it for TCEQ presentations. So this will bring us into the informal discussion period for tonight's public hearing. This will be your opportunity to come and ask questions related to the air application. TCEQ staff, the Vulcan representatives will try and provide you with an answer to your questions tonight. You don't need to raise your hand. I'm not going to call on you at this point. If you know you have a question, I'm just going to ask you to come on up to the microphone. Maybe state your name, who you represent, if you want to provide some context, and then ask your question. Tonight's public hearing, again, is on the air application for the concrete batch pump enhanced controls. So we're only going to be able to address those questions that are related to that application. And I guess one last thing that I'll say before we get started, I understand that this is an emotional issue, especially anytime you have kids involved. It can get emotional. It's okay to feel emotions. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay.
333 permits a month they have approved in 2016 and 2017. 7 months ago, I did not know the difference between concrete and cement, but boy, have my eyes been open to this industry and the way things are done, and they need to change. The process by which an air permit is issued is a joke. It's designed to serve the applicant, not the poor person who lives next door to the applicant, and that needs to change. Why do the property rights of an out-of-state billion-dollar corporation trump the property rights of the thousands of citizens who live around their site? Citizens who have been paying property taxes for decades on these properties. You've angered the wrong group of Texans this time around because we aren't stopping with this permit. We're coming to Austin to make some changes to your rule book. To Vulcan, I don't know who picked this particular location for your concrete batch plant, but they sure made a mistake. You have huge undeveloped areas all over the hill country to choose from, and you choose to come in 1,740 feet across an open green field from a Montessori school and 450 yards from a 30-year-old neighborhood. What kind of business sense does this make? Being outside in nature is an integral part of the Montessori curriculum, and there is no way this school can coexist with a concrete plant a quarter of a mile away. You will essentially be shutting down a school that has been in this community since 1981. Good luck with that. Also, this group of neighbors you're threatening isn't just a group of suburbanites who live in cookie-cutter tract housing neighborhoods that is interchangeable with any other cookie-cutter tract housing neighborhood. People out here value things like clean air, dark skies, nice views, and quiet, serene country living. This is a group of people who, for the most part, are living on their dream properties that they have spent their life savings to buy. They aren't going anywhere, and they aren't going to just resign themselves to living next to a concrete plant. They have gotten air quality monitors and will be continuously monitoring the air quality around your site and will be making complaints to TCEQ, the county, and the media as soon as there is an issue of any kind. Let me tell you what else you don't know about me. My ancestors came over on the Mayflower because they wanted change. By the early 1800s, they made their way to Texas where they served in government, fought, and died for this land. My point in all of this is that I come from a long line of pot stirrers, rebels, and people who aren't afraid to take a stand. You mess with the wrong group of people here. We are not your usual NIMBYs that you run into at every single one of these meetings. We are educated, experienced business people who are used to persisting until we get the results that we want, and we are not going away. What we are going to do is we're going to watch you like a hawk. If you get your permit, which I'm sure you will because the TCEQ double rubber stamps them, we will see you in district court. This will never be okay with Boerne. You will never be accepted as a part of this community. Every single speck of dust that leaves your facility, we're going to report it to the TCEQ, we're going to report it to the county, and we're going to let sure every single reporters that we know on our list will be aware of it as well. When Hill Country Montessori School closes, we will have reporters there to film the crying kids and teachers leaving that beautiful campus for the last time. And guess what else we're going to do? We're going to put it on YouTube so that the next community you threaten can find it more easily. Every school event you sponsor in Boerne, we're going to be there to protest. Every traffic problem you cause, we will be there to document it, let reporters know. We're going to put that on YouTube too. Yep. We will do baseline testing on every well around your site, and every well that dries up, we will make sure reporters are there to film them, having to lower it into the ground lower. And we will put that on YouTube as well. If you come to this site, you are going to know what a thorn in your side feels like, because we will never stop being a pain in your butt.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
How many plants?
Sorry, the question is, there's no requirement of the Clean Air Act for them to specify. I know. All right. Here, thank you. So I will defer to the applicant if they want to address that they can, but again, it's not part of the application that's being discussed here tonight.
So, on this location, we'll be using two sources of water. We will be using a well water on site, and that's coming from the Cow Creek aquifer.
All right, order, thank you.
And like I mentioned in the presentation, and there's also information on our website that also goes into details. So if you have additional questions, I would refer you to our website where it talks about our water usage. But we will use water that's equivalent to 5 to 10 homes. So that's 5 to 10 homes.
Order.
So in addition to that, we will have a rainwater capture system. We have 34 acres in which we're able to capture some of that watershed area and reuse it. Just similar to that rainwater capture, Kendall County has an average rainfall of 34 inches per year. So it does rain. And when it does rain, whether it's day or whether it's night, we'll be ready to capture it and use it in our operation. In addition, we'll have pavement and we'll be able to capture any of that runoff and use it in our basins. The final point I would like to point out is that Champion High School has a rainwater capture system, and money was invested in that program in order to capture that rainwater to reuse it for purposes. So it does rain, and it is valuable. Every drop counts. So that is our commitment, to make sure that we conserve our water, and that way the community can have access to it as well.
All right, thank you. And so here's what I would say is, obviously, water use is a concern. We understand that it's a concern that you have, but I also feel like it's important that we be clear about the issues that the TCEQ can consider when making a decision on this application. Water use is important, obviously, but under the law, the TCEQ is prohibited from using that as a factor in making a decision on their application. And I just want to be clear about that so that everyone understands what things the TCEQ can consider when they're making this decision and the things that they cannot. Go ahead.
There's no regards to schools, you can put a plant within 100 yards of the school?
Well, no.
The requirement in the standard permit in Texas Clean Air Act is the plant has to be 440 yards away from any permanent residence, school, or place of worship.
Okay. Who's going to make the final determination?
The executive director of TCEQ.
So the 3 appointed commissioners by the governor will, since this is a contested permit, they will be making the decision?
So let's clarify. This is not a permit that goes before the commission, correct, Sarah?
Correct. This is not a permit that goes before the commissioners. This stays within the executive director's office.
Now, why is that? Because according to what I understand is the overall agency and direction, as I read here in policy, is the full-time commissioners make the determination on contested permits. And if we're contesting it, and we've got a governor, and he appoints the commissioners, there's 3 commissioners, that it says, according to what I read, they make the final determination on contested permits.
Correct, but for this particular permit application, there's not an opportunity for a contested case hearing like there is under some other standard permits. So under the statute, it is not open for contested case hearing. When it's open for contested case hearing and people timely request contested case hearings, that's when it goes before the commissioners, but this has been delegated to the executive director.
Wait a second. Wait a second. So the commissioners are fully aware where this location is relative to schools. That's why I just want to make sure that everybody understands, because you have a governor who appointed these commissioners in the state of Texas, And I understand the policies and such, but they can determine it, they can make their own policy because they're appointed, as it says, to determine it.
Right, but they still have to stay within the statute, and the statute specifically states that that's something that goes before the commissioners. And as for, I know I heard a lot of people say why, and that is something that I cannot tell you, it's statutory history. I do not know why it was made a decision to issue this in statute.
It was a legislative decision that was.
Hi, my name is Cliff Kaplan. I'm with the Hill Country Alliance. We're a nonprofit that serves 17 counties in the Texas Hill Country. Our vision for healthy communities and a healthy environment in the Texas Hill Country. I think that most people in the room are coming to an understanding that this whole process really pushes us into just a question of air quality, and clearly the community has concerns that range from water to traffic to land use to property values. So I guess my question is, given that scenario that the community doesn't have an opportunity to really have an impact on the issues that are important to the community, my question is for Vulcan. Do you think that this is the democracy that this community deserves?
And again, Eddie, I think referenced earlier that they have information on the pamphlets that are available.
My question was for
website.
Vulcan, thank you.
And then that they have a number that you can call to address those concerns with. Again, I'm just parroting what Eddie said earlier with respect to that. So, do you have anything further you would add to that?
Yeah, the only thing, Vulcan has tried to be as informational as possible. That's why we have a website. We have an information hotline. If you have questions, if you're looking for information, you're welcome to go to the website and put in your question in there. We have pamphlets.
I did just ask a question.
Okay, hold on, let him finish.
So, as far as information that you're looking for, that's where it's at. So we're trying to provide you with as much information about the location, about this operation, and how we plan on operating. We feel that we can operate because we have history of operating in communities. We have a history of listening to our neighbors, and that is our promise. We will continue to listen to our neighbors and work in our communities.
I guess my last question is for the audience. If this is the system as it's supposed to be functioning, I guess this question for the TCEQ first. Is this the system as it's supposed to function?
Well, when you refer to the system, what are you?
The permitting process. This is how it's supposed to work?
For this particular standard permit, yes, sir. It's written in statute, and this is the proper procedure.
So if this is how the permitting process is supposed to work, my question for the audience is, do y'all think this system, this process needs to be changed?
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Keith Schnelly. I'm with the Texas Environmental Protection Coalition, and I would like to agree with our moderator and ask that you honor that we move quickly to the comment period, that we don't allow a very long break period, so we have important people with important things to say in the comment period to all of us.
Everybody, as Charles is getting ready, I'm going to go ahead and call up the next group. Snehal Patel, Tony D'Angelo Lott, Lee Anderson, Amber Clowney. Mr. Irvine.
Thank you. I'm here representing, as I said before, the Boerne to Bergheim Coalition for a Clean Environment. We submitted a detailed comment letter, and I sure hope to read a detailed response to those comments. Hit the highlights. I do believe they missed the notice deadline. I think that deprives TCEQ of the ability to actually issue this permit, and I would like a detailed explanation of why you think otherwise in your response to comments. Second.
Come on, folks, you're cutting to his time.
Yeah, give me more time.
Yeah.
Second, the compliance history issue and the shameful misuse of the Audit Privilege Act. That's disgraceful, and it's a shame on you for allowing it to happen. I would like to see an explanation of how an applicant like this can be in a continuous audit for 5 years with 30 violations, and you don't seem to care, and you didn't factor it into your analysis of compliance history. On other issues, the representations in the permit, I mentioned that in my question and answer session, they're garbage, right? They say 100,000 cubic yards of concrete per year. The day after they get their permit, they're going to push it up to 2.6 million. That's what they plan to do. That's 30 trucks per hour, 24/7. That's what they have in mind if they can sell that much concrete. Vulcan, why are you coming here? Look at all these people. These are your neighbors that you're saying, oh, we don't have any problems with our neighbors. They don't want you here. There are plenty of other places where you could do this. It took me 45 minutes to get into town. The traffic here is awful. This is not a good location for you to drive concrete trucks out even at 4 in the morning. We have a very active community. They're very opposed to you. And if you go ahead with this plan, they will continue to be opposed. You have hundreds of eyes in this room that are watching you tonight. They will continue to watch you. They've already installed continuous PM monitors around your site. You are circled by a ring of PM monitors. First violation, first visible emissions. I'm telling them, report it to TCEQ. You're going to have a world of hurt at this site. So just go find somewhere quiet. I honestly just don't understand why you want this world of hurt, but it is coming for you. If you do go ahead with your permit, I ask you to put in full cut-off lighting fixtures, because that's a big problem if you go ahead. Bright lights that you have.
In 1 minute.
Final reminder, Kendall County opposes this. Kendall County has enforcement authority under the Texas Clean Air Act. Again, another world of hurt. Every single complaint will be sent to Kendall County and will be sent to TCEQ. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gosh, a hard act to follow there. My name is Snehal Patel. I'm here in my individual capacity as a city council member for the city of Fair Oaks Ranch. Almost 20% of the families that are at Hill Country Montessori School live in Fair Oaks Ranch, and they would be affected by this application. That includes my own family with my 5-year-old in the audience who's in the primary program. I'm also a longtime environmental regulatory attorney, as many of you know, and I've been to a lot of public meetings exactly like this all over the state of Texas. And I will tell you this, what you're seeing today is not another case of not in my backyard. Vulcan says it's a good neighbor and it's committed to being a good neighbor to Kendall County. Well, and then they say that they're committed to listening and working with the community. These are quotes from their website. Well, actions speak larger than words, right? We've all learned that early in our lives. Here, Vulcan has intentionally placed a school that houses preschoolers, middle schoolers, elementary students, all right next to their proposed location. At the very heart of it, no matter how convincingly Vulcan says that they're trying to be a good neighbor, I find their action to show a complete disregard for our children, for our community, and our Hill Country values. Some parents and residents met with Westward, Melissa right over there, back in November 28 at our site. We gave them a tour of our beautiful campus. We told them about the outdoor curriculum, that this was not the place for them to be at. And you know what happened? January, we were surprised. There was no further communication. Instead, they chose to accelerate the entire process with this so-called enhanced control standard permit, and they actually moved the location closer to the school. So I'll concede that one thing in this new application that Vulcan does do effectively is it basically blocks the ability of the community to question all of these Vulcan's assertions before a neutral party at a contested case hearing. That is, again, not a sign of someone who is wanting to be a good neighbor. I also have done a side-by-side comparison of this new draft permit that they're touting as super great. Well, there's not much of a technical difference. Check it out. There's all this vague Vulcan talk of additional screenings and buffers and butterfly gardens. Well, at the same time, there's no limit on how high the stockpiles will go. So in short, what Vulcan is offering is little more than smoke and mirrors. I recognize that we need concrete in many aspects of our lives, but the bottom line is that this is an entirely wrong location for this community and for this batch plant to be at. I asked Vulcan to really stop, listen, really listen with open ears today and hear what the community is telling you. And you know, I asked TCEQ to really take a hard look today at all the hundreds of comments that have been submitted. Look at those very, very carefully and deny the proposed permit on procedural and substantive grounds. Those are the authorities that you do have under the Texas Clean Air Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony, D'Angelo, Irvine. As Charles is getting ready, I'm going to go ahead and call up the next group. Snehal Patel, Tony D'Angelo Lott, Lee Anderson, Amber Clowney. Mr. Irvine.
Thank you. I'm here representing, as I said before, the Boerne to Bergheim Coalition for a Clean Environment. We submitted a detailed comment letter, and I sure hope to read a detailed response to those comments. Hit the highlights. I do believe they missed the notice deadline. I think that deprives TCEQ of the ability to actually issue this permit, and I would like a detailed explanation of why you think otherwise in your response to comments. Second.
Hold on, folks, you're cutting into his time.
Yeah, give me more time.
Yeah.
Second, the compliance history issue and the shameful misuse of the Audit Privilege Act. That's disgraceful, and it's a shame on you for allowing it to happen. I would like to see an explanation of how an applicant like this can be in a continuous audit for 5 years with 30 violations, and you don't seem to care, and you didn't factor it into your analysis of compliance history. On other issues, the representations in the permit, I mentioned that in my question and answer session, they're garbage, right? They say 100,000 cubic yards of concrete per year. The day after they get their permit, they're going to push it up to 2.6 million. That's what they plan to do. That's 30 trucks per hour, 24/7. That's what they have in mind if they can sell that much concrete. Vulcan, why are you coming here? Look at all these people. These are your neighbors that you're saying, oh, we don't have any problems with our neighbors. They don't want you here. There are plenty of other places where you could do this. It took me 45 minutes to get into town. The traffic here is awful. This is not a good location for you to drive concrete trucks out even at 4 in the morning. We have a very active community. They're very opposed to you. And if you go ahead with this plan, they will continue to be opposed. You have hundreds of eyes in this room that are watching you tonight. They will continue to watch you. They've already installed continuous PM monitors around your site. You are circled by a ring of PM monitors. First violation, first visible emissions. I'm telling them to report it to TCEQ. You're going to have a world of hurt at this site. So just go find somewhere quiet. I honestly just don't understand why you want this world of hurt, but it is coming for you. If you do go ahead with your permit, I ask you to put in full cut-off lighting fixtures, because that's a big problem if you go ahead. Bright lights that you have.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Final reminder, Kendall County opposes this. Kendall County has enforcement authority under the Texas Clean Air Act. Again, another world of hurt. Every single complaint will be sent to Kendall County and will be sent to TCEQ. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gosh, a hard act to follow there. My name is Snehal Patel. I'm here in my individual capacity as a city council member for the city of Fair Oaks Ranch. Almost 20% of the families that are at Hill Country Montessori School live in Fair Oaks Ranch, and they would be affected by this application. That includes my own family with my 5-year-old in the audience who is in the primary program. I'm also a longtime environmental regulatory attorney, as many of you know, and I've been to a lot of public meetings exactly like this all over the state of Texas. And I will tell you this, what you're seeing today is not another case of not in my backyard. Vulcan says it's a good neighbor and it's committed to being a good neighbor to Kendall County. Well, and then they say that they're committed to listening and working with the community. These are quotes from their website. Well, actions speak larger than words, right? We've all learned that early in our lives. Here, Vulcan has intentionally placed a school that houses preschoolers, middle schoolers, elementary students, all right next to their proposed location. At the very heart of it, no matter how convincingly Vulcan says that they're trying to be a good neighbor, I find their action to show a complete disregard for our children, for our community, and our hill country values. Some parents and residents met with Westward, Melissa right over there, back in November 28 at our site. We gave them a tour of our beautiful campus. We told them about the outdoor curriculum, that this was not the place for them to be at. And you know what happened? January, we were surprised. There was no further communication. Instead, they chose to accelerate the entire process with this so-called enhanced control standard permit, and they actually moved the location closer to the school. So I'll concede that one thing with this new application that Vulcan does do effectively is it basically blocks the ability of the community to question all of these Vulcan's assertions before a neutral party at a contested case hearing. That is, again, not a sign of someone who is wanting to be a good neighbor. I also have done a side-by-side comparison of this new draft permit that they're touting as super great. Well, there's not much of a technical difference. Check it out. There's all this vague Vulcan talk of additional screenings and buffers and butterfly gardens. Well, at the same time, there's no limit on how high the stockpiles will go. So in short, what Vulcan is offering is little more than smoke and mirrors. I recognize that we need concrete in many aspects of our lives, but the bottom line is that this is an entirely wrong location for this community and for this batch plan to be at. I asked Vulcan to really stop, listen, really listen with open ears today and hear what the community is telling you. And you know, I asked TCEQ to really take a hard look today at all the hundreds of comments that have been submitted. Look at those very, very carefully and deny the proposed permit on procedural and substantive grounds. Those are the authorities that you do have under the Texas Clean Air Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony, the answer.
You might not.
Well, and if you want to ask those questions during the comment period, and those folks can go back and find that data for you and provide it in writing. Go ahead. Thank you.
The next question I have is this. I think it's gonna be a lawyer question, maybe. It's got the Audit Act. I want to try to understand this. I've tried because I'm not a lawyer. But when I read this, I look at it and I'm trying to find a place where it says that it's okay 2 days into an investigation to disclose 10 violations without an open audit. And no one gets any NOVs for that. Is that a problem?
Is that a question that you can address from a permitting perspective, or
Well,
is that?
it is a problem because if you're going to do that here, then that means there is no incentive for them to do anything that they say they're going to do.
I don't dispute. I'm just Sierra's brought a lot of vision where she handles the permitting process. The question you're asking really goes more to the enforcement process, and I just don't know if Sierra can address that. I'll give you a chance.
Well, and that's more or less what I was going to say, which I know you're not going to like that answer, but that's something that I would put into a written comment or address in the formal comment period, and that way we can take that back and discuss that with the attorneys that handle our enforcement issues.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, please.
Mine's just a general concern. Okay, on dust abatement, you said that you're planning on 80% of your water usage coming from rainwater catchment. And as has been pointed out before, we're in a drought-prone area and go through periods of drought on a continual basis. Do you draw your water, that leaves 20% of your water you're going to get elsewhere. So you're gonna be drawing that water from Canyon Lake? Are you drawing that water from Edwards Aquifer? Or as many of us in here are, I'm on Cow Creek and on a well. The more water you pour or take out of Cow Creek is gonna reduce the water level and accessibility for my home in my well. So what kind of backup plan do you have to use for your dust abatement, which basically, from what I understand, boils down to the water being sprinkled down to keep the dust settled? What are you going to use other than Cow Creek? Are you going to use Canyon Lake? Are you using Edwards Aquifer? Because it's my understanding in the 2015 drought that you were penalized for overdrawing from Edwards Aquifer. And if you did it then, what's to prevent you from doing it now? And are you doing it out of the Edwards Aquifer, Cow Creek, Canyon Lake, whatever it is? We're in a drought-prone area, and water is what we all depend on.
So again, the requirement under the Clean Air Act is that they use water or a dust suppressant chemical. The Clean Air Act does not require them to specify what that source is going to be.
Really?
So it's not part.
They can't tell us where they're going to get the water that
It's
they're
not a
going
part
to use.
of this application.
We're in a drought-prone area, and that's one thing that all of our families depend on, is water. To bathe with, to drink, to live in this community. We need water, and a good majority of us are on well. And I don't know about everybody else, but I'm on Cow Creek. And my well cannot sustain over pumping. It just can't. Schwaltz was out here not that long ago to my house to work on the well. And what they said is all it takes is one good company coming in here and pumping you dry, and you're going to be working on a new well. So that is a concern. It should be more than just, oh, they can come up with the water someplace.
Thank you. Anything you say about your choice of location here? Hold on. So again, location is not something the TCEQ can dictate to an applicant. Our role is to, I'm just explaining the TCEQ's role with respect. I'm just explaining TCEQ's role with respect to choice of location. Again, choice of location is not something that's part of the application process, so I defer to the applicant as to whether they want to address that.
It's clear that we've all wasted our time coming here because you have a specific agenda of what you want to talk about, and you've rubber stamped this based on obvious work of the
Respectfully, hold on, thank you. All right, so respectfully, thank you. Respectfully, I disagree with you. The point of this hearing is to provide the public an opportunity to provide comments on the application. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, no longer than 5 minutes.
My last comment is we've got some local and state political representatives here, and you people need to stand up and help this community.
All right, thank you. So, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
333 permits a month they have approved in 2016 and 2017. 7 months ago, I did not know the difference between concrete and cement, but boy, have my eyes been open to this industry and the way things are done, and they need to change. The process by which an air permit is issued is a joke. It's designed to serve the applicant, not the poor person who lives next door to the applicant, and that needs to change. Why do the property rights of an out-of-state billion-dollar corporation trump the property rights of the thousands of citizens who live around their site? Citizens who have been paying property taxes for decades on these properties. You've angered the wrong group of Texans this time around because we aren't stopping with this permit. We're coming to Austin to make some changes to your rule book. To Vulcan, I don't know who picked this particular location for your concrete batch plant, but they sure made a mistake. You have huge undeveloped areas all over the hill country to choose from, and you choose to come in 1,740 feet across an open green field from a Montessori school and 450 yards from a 30-year-old neighborhood. What kind of business sense does this make? Being outside in nature is an integral part of the Montessori curriculum, and there is no way this school can coexist with a concrete plant a quarter of a mile away. You will essentially be shutting down a school that has been in this community since 1981. Good luck with that. Also, this group of neighbors you're threatening isn't just a group of suburbanites who live in cookie-cutter tract housing neighborhoods that is interchangeable with any other cookie-cutter tract housing neighborhood. People out here value things like clean air, dark skies, nice views, and quiet, serene country living. This is a group of people who, for the most part, are living on their dream properties that they have spent their life savings to buy. They aren't going anywhere, and they aren't going to just resign themselves to living next to a concrete plant. They have gotten air quality monitors and will be continuously monitoring the air quality around your site and will be making complaints to TCEQ, the county, and the media as soon as there is an issue of any kind. Let me tell you what else you don't know about me. My ancestors came over on the Mayflower because they wanted change. By the early 1800s, they made their way to Texas, where they served in government, fought, and died for this land. My point in all of this is that I come from a long line of pot stirrers, rebels, and people who aren't afraid to take a stand. You mess with the wrong group of people here. We are not your usual NIMBYs that you run into at every single one of these meetings. We are educated, experienced business people who are used to persisting until we get the results that we want, and we are not going away. What we are going to do is we're going to watch you like a hawk. If you get your permit, which I'm sure you will because the TCEQ double rubber stamps them, we will see you in district court. This will never be okay with Boerne. You will never be accepted as a part of this community. Every single speck of dust that leaves your facility, we're going to report it to the TCEQ, we're going to report it to the county, and we're going to let sure every single reporters that we know on our list will be aware of it as well. When Hill Country Montessori School closes, we will have reporters there to film the crying kids and teachers leaving that beautiful campus for the last time. And guess what else we're going to do? We're going to put it on YouTube so that the next community you threaten can find it more easily. Every school event you sponsor in Boerne, we're going to be there to protest. Every traffic problem you cause, we will be there to document it, let reporters know. We're going to put that on YouTube too. Yep. We will do baseline testing on every well around your site, and every well that dries up, we will make sure reporters are there to film them, having to lower it into the ground lower. And we will put that on YouTube as well. If you come to this site, you are going to know what a thorn in your side feels like because we will never stop being a pain in your butt.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed watching the horses run by, seeing the rolling hills and luscious fields, and it'd be just a disaster to see it all become just a concrete plant. I can assure you that if I had grown up in that type of environment, I would be a completely different person today. I now attend the middle school program at Hill Country Montessori School, and I work outside daily. The outdoor environment is a key aspect to the Montessori curriculum. The middle school and elementary students will be at the highest risk in this school. Children in the elementary classrooms can be observed outside at many different parts of the day, working on several activities such as studying the weather, art, botany, and many other different topics as well. Children in the classroom are outside every day. Children in this classroom are outside every single day learning and may be distracted by the loud noises that the concrete plant will make, obviously, and the health risks they will face. Kids in this classroom have also been notorious for eating snacks outside as well. Just think about this for a second. There's small children outside eating snacks that might have concrete dust get onto it, and that will cause them to directly be inhaling and consuming concrete dust. Every day, the middle school students, including myself, will separate into groups of 3 to 4 to work on group work. These groups will hardly ever stay in the classroom unless we're held back by foul weather. I wish to also mention that 68% of the students on campus and 81% of the members of the staff on campus are affected by environmental allergies. If the concrete plant is to be built, I can assure you that the contents and concrete dust will aggravate or worsen the already present allergies that many of us have to deal with. Along with allergies, the students and staff on campus will also face other health risks when doing outdoor activities.
I've done some research and I have discovered that concrete dust could cause very serious illnesses to anyone who has come into contact with it. Someone else has already talked about the lung diseases, so I'll talk about something else. I know many people probably know concrete dust is bad for you, but it can cause, if it gets in your eyes, it can cause irritation and even blindness. And many of the people in our community, in our classrooms, do have to wear glasses and other things like contacts to make sure they can see. And skin irritation is also an issue which could become present if humans are exposed to concrete dust. I have to be blunt with you all. I really do enjoy being outside and having the freedom to have fresh air and just breathing in. The school has 2 programs where we run and train right by the property where they plan to build a concrete plant. Children from the ages of 9 to 14 will train for cross country and track and field for over an hour a day. Some students are still training out in that field after school for a 5K run that's coming up.
Mine took me just a few minutes, Brad, a couple of minutes longer than 3, but first off, I do want to thank y'all and Vulcan for being here. And I want everybody in here to understand that it is not any of these folks' fault that is sitting on this stage tonight of what we're all faced with, and that it has to be addressed. Just a quick Marble Falls story. The reason that I'm here and I represent the Texas Environmental Protection Coalition. And the reason we came about is in Marble Falls, we're just up the road from y'all to your north. We're already surrounded by quarries in that area. We've got, in the north, we're shut down from basically from Marble Falls to Boerne. It's completely encompassed by quarries. To our west is Granite Mountain, same thing all the way to Granite Shoals. Over the last several years, they have moved into our east in the Spicewood area. And we have folks here we've come to join and help y'all. We have folks that were here to represent that tonight. But we've moved into the Spicewood area. They've got 4 concrete plants there. Vulcan also has a huge quarry there. And it looks like, that's another thing, all these things have to change, but they talk about, and it's been mentioned several times, that their truck traffic is not part of the calculations used in their modeling processes. And just the other day, we were coming back from there, and when their trucks leave that Vulcan plant, and they come out to 71, their plant is to the south of our highway. There was one coming out the other day, and it looked like a blizzard going across the highway when he stopped. And that happens consistently all the time. That has to become part of the calculations. And this is kind of ironic as far as what I am. I'm actually a builder and a developer, so therefore I use these products every day. But I have never wanted to know that those products, I would never want to know that these products come at the sacrifice and the expense of others. And it's time for all of y'all, the aggregate industry itself and all of them, to start putting people before profit. Okay? And we want the politicians to see this point, and we want it on TV, and we want it in the San Antonio Express News, is that we can't put up with this anymore, y'all. And we are wasting our time by sitting up here and saying the same things over and over again. We're asking you tonight to stand up with us, and turn our back on the TCEQ and the aggregate industry, because TCEQ only caters to the aggregate industry. They do not going to help us. They do not help us. And until we change their rule books, and until the governor and the politicians assist us, then we're wasting our time. And we are asking you to exit this building tonight in support of our efforts and to join our coalition in our battle as we go forth from here.
All right, thank you. Next up is Ron and Elaine Dickey. Next up is Lindsay Chapman. Next up is Clyde and Kathy Colbert. Next up is Paul Burkowski. Next up is Megan Urka. All right, folks, we got people that want to comment. Let's respect them and give them the opportunity to do that. Who do we have up? Paul, okay, hold on. Paul Barakowski? Borowski?
Borowski.
Okay. So Paul, go ahead and state your name and then provide your, yeah.
Yes, this is Paul Borowski.
I'm Audrey Borowski, and HCMS for 1 year, but I really love it. And if the cement plant goes in, it will make a lot of dust in the air, and I have allergies, and a lot of people have allergies. And when we're practicing, it's
Hold on just 1 second. Please maintain order as you're exiting the building. We do have people that want to provide comments on the record. All right, but I hear a lot of chatter in the back. I just want to have order in the room so we can hear. All right, thank you.
And a lot of people have allergies, and if they have super bad allergies, the track field and where we practice for cross country and track, it will be so dusty that I and a lot of other people who have allergies will not be able to do those sports.